My friends, the secret is simple, yet so often overlooked. You must act as if your time has come. Do not wait for signs. Do not wait for circumstances to prove themselves. Life does not unfold because of evidence in the outer world. Life unfolds because of the conviction you hold within. Imagination is not a shadow play of idle thought. It is the creative power that molds reality. The moment you dare to assume that you already are what you wish to be, you set in motion forces unseen yet irresistible. Act as if the door is already open. Walk with the confidence of one who has already arrived. Speak as though your desire is behind you, not ahead of you. For what you claim within will soon appear without. The world mirrors your inner stance. If you persist in living as the one who waits, then waiting will be your portion. But if you persist in living as the one who already has, then having will surely be your portion. Faith is not passive hope. It is not looking forward to the day of fulfillment. Faith is bold assumption. Faith wears the garment of the accomplished fact. Faith moves through the world with assurance, even when no proof yet stands before it. So I tell you, take your place now. Let the feeling of the wish fulfilled clothe you. Breathe it in, walk with it, and let it shape your tone, your posture, your every word. Act as if your time has come, and the world will rearrange itself to make it so. Imagination is the seed of reality. Everything that exists in this world, from the grandest achievements to the simplest acts, was once nothing more than a thought, a vision, a silent picture in the mind of someone who dared to believe it. Before the building rises, it lives as a sketch in the architect's imagination. Before the song is sung, it plays within the quiet chamber of the musician's heart. Before the life you desire unfolds, it must first be planted and nurtured within the soil of your inner world. The world you see is not as independent of you as you may believe. It bends and reshapes itself according to the persistent images you carry within. What you assume to be true, though invisible to all, becomes the foundation upon which reality builds itself. If you continually imagine lack, you will meet lack. If you imagine abundance, you will encounter the opportunities and circumstances that confirm it. This is no accident. Life is not governed by chance, but by law. The law that the inner state calls forth, its reflection. When you treat imagination as idle daydreaming, you dismiss the greatest creative force you possess. Imagination is not a place of escape. It is a workshop of destiny. In the silence of your inner vision, you are the author, director, and actor of your life's play. Whatever role you repeatedly cast yourself in there, the outer stage will one day demand you step into. The world must follow your assumption, for assumption is creative, and imagination, once clothed with belief, becomes fact. Think for a moment of the countless times your imagination has already written your story. Perhaps you feared something and felt its reality so vividly that soon circumstances brought it into being. Or perhaps you dreamed of success, lived in it in secret moments, and later found yourself walking into a reality that matched your dream. Whether you were conscious of it or not, imagination had already gone before you, preparing the way. The great mistake is to assume that imagination is weak and facts are strong. In truth, facts are nothing but imagination fulfilled. What you now call reality was once only an image, sustained long enough to take form. If this is true, and it is, Then the wise learn to guard their inner world, planting only the seeds they wish to harvest. No farmer sows thorns expecting roses, yet so often we sow thoughts of fear, doubt, limitation, and wonder why our lives mirror the same. To live wisely is to take imagination seriously. It is to choose deliberately what you assume to be true, not because you see it yet, but because you know the world must yield to the seed planted within. Begin today to imagine not what was, not what is, but what you desire to be. Feel it as though it is already yours. Walk in its light, speak from its truth. Nurture it with persistence, and soon, as every seed does, it will break the ground of the invisible and show itself in the visible. To live in the end now is to enter the state of your fulfilled desire as though it were already accomplished. To feel as if your outcome is not a hope or a distant dream, but a present reality. This is the essence of creation, for life does not unfold by waiting for proof, but by assuming the proof is already given. When you live in the end, you no longer chase after what you want. You rest in the certainty that it is yours. And by resting in that certainty, you draw it into form. The mind that waits is always postponing. It says, one day, when conditions change, I will be happy, I will be successful, I will be free. But the mind that lives in the end says, it is already done, I am already there. This is not wishful thinking. It is the law of becoming. For you can never experience anything in the outer world that you have not first accepted within yourself. To feel the end now is to shift from desire to possession, from longing to having, from hoping to knowing. When you live in the end, you begin to act differently. You speak with a new tone. You walk with a new confidence. You make choices aligned with the reality you have claimed rather than the reality you see. And though nothing may seem to have changed in the outer world, you are already different. This inner difference is the cause of the outer change that must eventually follow. The world is a mirror, and it reflects not what you want, but who you are being. Think of it like a seed. When a seed is planted in the earth, it does not yet look like the tree it is destined to become. But the seed already contains within itself the full pattern of the tree. The tree is in truth already here, hidden but inevitable. When you live in the end, you plant the seed of your desire and water it with your feelings of fulfillment. You do not dig it up to check if it is growing. You rest in the certainty that it must, and as the seed, so the desire. What you nurture inwardly in faith will inevitably grow into form. Living in the end requires imagination. It asks you to step beyond appearances and feel what the senses cannot yet confirm. You must dare to see yourself as the person who has already achieved what you long for. How does it feel to be that person? What do you see when you look through their eyes? How do you carry yourself? How do you speak? How do you live? The more vividly you inhabit that state, the more natural it becomes, until it feels less like pretending and more like truth. And here lies the mystery. When you persist in living in the end, the world rearranges itself to match your inner conviction. Circumstances shift, people appear, doors open. What once seemed impossible unfolds, as if it had been waiting for you all along. For creation is finished, and you claim it not by waiting, but by assuming. To live in the end is to declare with certainty, it is done, it is mine, I am already there. Identity precedes manifestation because nothing can appear in your world until it has first taken root in who you believe yourself to be. Life does not respond to what you want, nor even to what you think you deserve. It responds to who you are in consciousness. The outer experience is always the reflection of the inner identity. If you wish to see change in your world, you must first assume the change in yourself. You must become inwardly the person who already has what you seek. Every desire you hold points to a version of yourself that is calling you. If you desire wealth, health, love, or freedom, you are not simply wishing for things, you are longing for a new expression of self. But unless you shift your sense of I am, the desire remains a picture without substance. To manifest anything, you must wear the identity of the one who possesses it. For example, a person who longs for success but inwardly clings to the identity of failure will unconsciously sabotage every opportunity. Their actions, words, and decisions spring from their self concept, and the world dutifully mirrors it. This is why transformation begins within. The true work is not in forcing outer events, but in assuming the inner position of already being the one you wish to be. Ask yourself, who am I in relation to my desire? Do I see myself as lacking, waiting, hoping? Or do I dare to claim, even in silence, that I am already the one who has arrived? Once identity shifts, everything else follows. Your thoughts align, your emotions shift, your behavior adapts, and opportunities appear, all because you no longer identify as the seeker, but as the possessor. And so identity is powerful because it governs the subconscious. You do not act against who you believe yourself to be. If you think of yourself as weak, you will never take the steps that belong to the strong. If you think of yourself as unworthy, you will quietly repel the very love you desire. But the moment you accept a new identity, not as a future possibility, but as your present reality, you unlock a new pattern of life. The subconscious accepts the image of self you persist in holding, and life must yield the experiences that confirm it. To become inwardly the person who has what you seek, you must claim it in imagination and feeling. See yourself as already living the life you desire. Speak as though it is yours. Walk with the dignity, the confidence, the gratitude of one who already possesses it. Do not wait for permission from circumstances, for circumstances only echo your state. Begin now to carry yourself in harmony with your chosen identity. Soon the world will no longer deny you, because it cannot. The outer must conform to the inner. When you firmly and consistently identify as the person who has, rather than the one who seeks, manifestation ceases to be a struggle. It becomes natural, inevitable, and effortless, because the law of life is this: identity precedes manifestation. The outer world mirrors the inner state because life can only show you what you persistently hold within. Circumstances are not random accidents, nor are they independent forces outside your control. They are reflections, echoes, and shadows of the convictions that live in the depths of your being. What you believe, feel, and assume inwardly writes itself upon the stage of your world. When you understand this, you stop wrestling with appearances and begin shaping the unseen cause, your inner state. Every person you meet, every event you encounter, every condition you face is a mirror held up to your own consciousness. If you carry within you a sense of lack, the world must present itself as empty, withholding, and scarce. If you carry within you a sense of abundance, the world cannot help but show itself as generous, fertile, and overflowing. The law is impartial. It does not favor good or bad, rich or poor. It simply reflects the image you continually impress upon it through your inner conviction. Many imagine that if only circumstances would change, they could then feel differently. Yet the truth is reversed. If you feel differently, circumstances will change. The world is plastic to the mold of your inner assumption. Persist in fear, and you will walk through a fearful world. Persist in confidence, and you will find doors open, people receptive, and events aligning in your favor. The difference lies not in chance, but in the unwavering state you occupy within yourself. Persistence is the key. A fleeting thought or a momentary feeling will not uproot the patterns of a lifetime. But a conviction held steadily shapes reality with irresistible force. The outer world bends, not to passing wishes, but to sustained inner certainty. Just as water wears down stone through persistence, your inner state, held long enough, dissolves the resistance of appearances and calls forth a matching reflection. Consider how often you have proven this law unconsciously. Perhaps you expected rejection and found it wherever you turned. Or perhaps you carried a quiet confidence and noticed how people responded with respect and openness. The circumstances were not the cause, they were the mirror. The cause was within you all along. When you grasp this, you stop blaming the outer and take responsibility for the inner. You recognize that to change the reflection, you must change the image it reflects. The work, then, is to live inwardly in the state you desire, regardless of appearances. Feel yourself secure when the evidence suggests otherwise. Assume yourself loved, even if loneliness surrounds you. Claim abundance in the face of lack. Hold to this inner conviction with persistence, and the mirror of life will eventually display it. Circumstances cannot resist the authority of a deeply felt state. They must rearrange to confirm it. And as we've said, it cannot happen to the circumstances cannot happen to the authority of a deeply felt state. They must rearrange to confirm it. So do not chase the outer world, for it has no power of its own. Tend to the inner garden, plant the seeds of conviction you wish to see, and persist in their care. The reflection will follow. The outer world has no choice but to bend to the persistence of your inner conviction. Faith is not waiting, it is assuming. To wait is to place your desire in the future, to confess that it is not yet yours, and to postpone its fulfillment indefinitely. But true faith does not look ahead for proof. It rests in the certainty that what is longed for is already accomplished. Faith is not passive, it is active. It assumes the reality of the unseen and dares to live as though it were already manifest. This is the difference between a wish and a conviction. A wish hopes, but faith assumes. Waiting keeps you in a state of lack. It says, one day, when conditions are right, when opportunities arrive, when the world approves, then I will have what I seek. But assumption lives in the now. It declares, it is already mine. I walk in it, breathe in it, and move from it. To assume is to accept as fact that which the senses deny. It is to take hold of the invisible and treat it as the only truth, trusting that the visible will soon align. Belief must be lived, not postponed. If you say you believe, but still act, think, and feel as though you lack, then your belief is only a hollow word. Real belief transforms behavior. It gives you a new posture, a new tone of voice, a new vision of self. When you truly assume, your decisions reflect it, your inner dialogue confirms it, and your world begins to mirror it. You no longer beg for what is already yours. You express gratitude and confidence, knowing it cannot fail. Faith is creative power clothed in assumption. It does not wait for evidence because it knows evidence follows conviction. not the other way around. Just as the seed carries within it the invisible pattern of the tree, faith carries within it the certainty of fulfillment. You do not wait for the seed to prove itself before you believe it will grow. You plant it, water it, and assume its destiny. So with desire. Once claimed in faith, it is as certain as the rising of the sun. To practice faith is to discipline the mind to dwell in the end, not in the absence. When doubt whispers, "But it is not here," faith replies, "It is already mine." When appearances shout, "Look, nothing has changed," faith calmly asserts, "All has changed within, and the outer must follow." This persistence of assumption bends reality until it conforms to the inner stance. The world cannot resist the authority of lived belief. The tragedy is that many confuse waiting with faith. They pray, they hope, they long, but they remain in the posture of lack. Their very waiting ensures more waiting, for life reflects the state they occupy. But the moment one stops waiting and begins assuming, everything shifts. Doors open, paths clear, opportunities align, not because chance has favored them, but because faith has claimed them. Faith then is not passive expectation, it is present possession. It is the bold assumption that your desire is already fulfilled and the courageous choice to live accordingly. Stop waiting, assume now. For belief is only real when it is lived. To act as if it is already done is to step into the reality of your fulfilled desire with your whole being, in thought, in feeling, and in action. It is to stop treating your dream as a distant possibility and to begin living from it as though it were already fact. The world cannot resist the conviction of one who carries themselves in harmony with their desire. When you act as if it is already done, you send a signal to life itself, and life answers by arranging circumstances to confirm your stance. Acting as if is not pretending in the shallow sense of make-believe. It is embodying the truth that creation is finished and that your desire already exists in the unseen. You are not trying to force reality into being. You are aligning yourself with what is already yours. Just as an actor who plays a role with conviction eventually becomes indistinguishable from the part, when you assume the state of your fulfilled desire, you gradually become it in truth. Sibi, 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 Sibi. To move as if it is already done means your actions spring from confidence rather than hesitation. If you were already the person you long to be, how would you walk into a room? How would you treat others? What choices would you make? Begin to live from those answers now. For the world responds not to your words, but to your state of being. You cannot fool life with empty gestures, but you can transform it by saturating your thoughts and actions with the feeling of fulfillment. To think as if it is already done is to discipline your inner dialogue. No longer do you say, "One day I will have it," or "I hope it comes." Instead, you think from the place of accomplishment. It is mine. I am already living it. Every thought becomes a silent rehearsal of the desired reality, and by repetition, that inner script hardens into fact. The subconscious accepts the story you persist in telling, and the outer world mirrors it faithfully. To feel as if it is already done is the deepest layer, for feeling is the language of creation. Thought alone may wander, but feeling anchors the reality in the subconscious. Ask yourself, how would I feel if I already had what I seek? Would it be relief, joy, gratitude, freedom? Allow yourself to feel it now, to let that emotional state saturate your being, and you will discover that life begins to echo it in visible form. The power of acting as if lies in its persistence. For a moment, anyone can imagine themselves successful, loved, or free, but to consistently move, think, and feel in that alignment, regardless of appearances, is the true test of creation. The outer world may resist at first, but it cannot withstand the steady conviction of one who has already claimed the end. Eventually, circumstances yield, people shift, and events unfold to match the inner alignment. So do not wait for proof before you believe. Act as if it is already done, and belief itself becomes the proof. Move with the confidence of fulfillment, think from the place of completion, and feel the joy of possession now. In doing so, you harmonize with the reality you claim, and life itself has no choice but to reflect it. Every great change begins within. Imagination is the seed of reality, and when you dare to live in the end now, to assume your desire as already yours, to step into the identity of the one who has, the world cannot help but mirror that state. Circumstances will bend to your inner conviction, for faith is not waiting but assuming. An assumption demands action. When you act as if it is already done, you align every thought, every feeling, every step with the reality you claim, and the unseen moves to make it visible. The truth is simple. Life is not happening to you. It is happening through you. You are the author of your story, and the script is written in the silence of your inner world. Choose today to write with confidence, with certainty, with faith, and watch as your world rises to confirm it. Thank you for sharing this moment, for opening your heart to these words, and for daring to see beyond appearances into the power that is already yours. Your time has come. Believe it, live it, act as if, and so it shall be. There is a quiet order moving through your life right now, even if your senses have not yet caught up to it. What you call waiting is not emptiness, it is preparation. What you call delay is not denial, it is precision. Life is not stumbling toward your desires, it is assembling them with exactness beyond human planning. You are not behind. You have never been late. Every experience you have lived, every pause you have endured, every redirection that confused you, has been part of a larger orchestration. The moment you accepted the idea within yourself, this is mine, a sequence was set into motion. From that instant, unseen movements began aligning people, opportunities, and conditions to meet the image you held inwardly. The outer world is always the last to move. It must rearrange itself, and rearrangement takes form through time. But time is not your enemy. Time is the servant of the state you occupy. When you rest in the feeling of fulfillment, time bends to deliver what you already claimed in consciousness. You do not bring things into being through strain or constant effort. You bring them forth through assumption. When you assume a thing to be true, life has no choice but to echo that truth back to you. The echo may seem delayed, but it is always exact. Nothing arrives early, nothing arrives late. It arrives when it can be sustained, recognized, and received. There are moments when you feel tempted to interfere, to push, to force, to question the silence. But silence is not absence. Silence is alignment happening beyond your perception. Seeds do not announce their growth. They break open in darkness first. And so it is with your desires. They root themselves in the unseen long before they appear in form. Everything that is not aligned with your fulfillment is quietly falling away. Certain doors close not to punish you, but to preserve the path that leads directly to what is yours. Some connections dissolve because they cannot accompany you where you are going. This is not loss, this is refinement. Remain loyal to the inner knowing. Live as though the outcome is settled. Speak to yourself from certainty, not hope. When doubt arises, do not wrestle with it. Return to the feeling of completion. The moment you occupy that feeling, you are no longer waiting, you are allowing. Divine timing is not something you must earn. It responds automatically to who you are being within. When your inner world rests in trust, the outer world accelerates with purpose. Circumstances shift, conversations appear, opportunities align without struggle. What once felt impossible becomes natural. Everything is coming together because it already has, first in consciousness and soon in experience. Stay faithful to the end. Stay calm in the in-between. What is meant for you is already on its way, arriving not by chance, but by perfect design. Divine timing is not delay, it is the unseen intelligence arranging everything in your favor. What appears to the human mind as waiting is in truth a period of precise organization taking place, beyond the reach of your senses. Life is not ignoring your desire, nor has it misplaced your intention. It is responding with accuracy, assembling the conditions that will allow what you desire to arrive whole, stable, and lasting. Nothing is random. Nothing is forgotten. Everything is moving according to an order that serves you, even when you cannot yet see the pattern. When the mind demands immediate proof, it often overlooks the deeper movement happening beneath the surface. Just as a seed must break open in darkness before it ever rises into the light, your desire must first be established inwardly before it can appear outwardly. The unseen intelligence works silently, aligning people, circumstances, timing, and opportunities, so that when the moment arrives, everything fits naturally. If things were to appear prematurely, they would lack the foundation needed to remain. What you call delay is actually protection. This intelligence responds not to effort, but to assumption. The moment you accepted the idea of fulfillment as real within yourself, the process began. From that instant, life reorganized itself around your inner state. Events that seemed unrelated were quietly redirected. Situations that felt like obstacles were, in fact, corrections, guiding you toward the precise route. Even apparent setbacks serve a purpose, removing what no longer matches the reality you have claimed. There are moments when doubt whispers that nothing is happening, but doubt is only the mind reacting to what it cannot measure. The unseen does not require your constant monitoring. It requires your trust. When you stop interfering and rest in the feeling of certainty, you allow the intelligence to complete its work without resistance. Forcing, rushing, or questioning only pulls attention back to lack, while calm expectancy keeps you aligned with fulfillment. Divine timing ensures that everything arrives when you are ready to receive it fully. Readiness is not about perfection, it is about inner acceptance. When you no longer wonder if it will happen, when you feel it as already done, you meet the moment that allows it to appear. At that point, events unfold effortlessly, often faster than expected, because all preparation has already been completed. What is meant for you cannot miss you. It is being delivered through a sequence too refined for impatience, too intelligent for fear. Trust the process unfolding now. What you desire is not late, it is approaching at the exact moment it can be sustained, recognized, and enjoyed. What feels incomplete now is already complete in consciousness. The sense of something missing arises only because the outer world has not yet caught up with what has already been accepted inwardly. Consciousness is always first. It forms the pattern, and life follows the pattern faithfully, though not always instantly. The moment an idea is embraced as real within, its completion is settled. What remains is not creation, but revelation. The human eye judges by appearances, and appearances move slowly. They require rearrangement, transition, and sequence. Consciousness, however, does not operate in fragments. It sees the end at the beginning. When you dwell in the feeling of fulfillment, you are not pretending or hoping. You are aligning with a reality that already exists on a deeper level. From that alignment, the world must respond, because the outer world has no choice but to reflect the inner state that dominates. Incompleteness is a sensation, not a fact. It is the result of attention resting on what is still forming rather than on what is already decided. The moment you shift your focus from absence to acceptance, you move from effort to allowance. You are no longer trying to make something happen. You are allowing what is already established to emerge naturally. This shift is not forced change, it permits it. Every desire carries within it its own fulfillment. You would not be aware of a possibility unless the capacity for its realization already existed within consciousness. The feeling of not yet is simply the bridge between inner completion and outer expression. That bridge is crossed not by impatience, but by faithfulness to the end. Remaining loyal to the inner picture sustains it until it becomes visible. There are times when circumstances appear to contradict what you know inwardly. These moments are not evidence of failure, they are part of the adjustment process. Old patterns must dissolve before new ones can take their place. What seems like delay or disorder is often the final stage of reorganization. The mind may grow restless, but consciousness remains certain. It does not ask if the outcome will arrive, it assumes it must. When you rest in the awareness that it is already complete within, anxiety loses its grip. You no longer measure progress by external signs. You measure it by your inner steadiness. Peace becomes the indicator that you are aligned. And from that peace, events begin to flow with less resistance and greater harmony. Trust what you have accepted as true. What is complete in consciousness is inevitable in experience. The outer world may take its time, but it cannot deny what has already been decided within. Completion is not coming, it is unfolding. Your assumption of fulfillment activates the sequence of events that leads inevitably to its expression. Life does not respond to longing or effort. It responds to what you quietly accept as true. The moment you assume the feeling of completion, you set a law into motion. From that point forward, the world begins to reorganize itself to reflect the state you are occupying within. You do not need to instruct the process or understand how it will happen. The assumption itself is the command. An assumption is not a wish. It is an inner decision that something already is. When you live from that decision, your reactions change, your expectations soften, and your inner dialogue shifts from questioning to knowing. This inner shift may feel subtle, but its effects are powerful. Every event that follows is influenced by the state you are sustaining. even when the connection is not immediately obvious. The sequence of events rarely announces itself in dramatic ways. It often begins with small movements, a conversation that catches your attention, a delay that redirects you, an opportunity that appears ordinary at first glance. Yet each of these is placed with precision. What appears accidental is arranged. What seems unrelated is essential. The assumption you hold becomes the organizing principle behind these movements. When you do not see immediate confirmation, the mind may attempt to return to doubt. But doubt only interrupts the sequence by shifting attention back to lack. Remaining faithful to your assumption does not mean forcing belief. It means returning again and again to the feeling of fulfillment whenever the mind wanders. You are not asked to struggle, only to remain consistent. The world must bridge the gap between where you are now and where your assumption places you. That bridge is built through time, circumstance, and interaction. Certain doors close because they do not lead to the reality you have assumed. Certain paths open effortlessly because they align perfectly with it. Even resistance serves a function, strengthening your clarity and refining your focus. Your role is not to manage the unfolding, but to sustain the inner state that initiated it. When you stop trying to control outcomes and instead rest in expectancy, the sequence accelerates naturally. Life moves faster when there is no inner conflict to slow it down. Fulfillment is not produced by chance, it is released by alignment. The assumption you accept as true becomes the cause, and experience becomes the effect. Stay with the assumption, live from the end. The events are already in motion, responding faithfully to the state you have chosen. Nothing meant for you can miss you when you remain faithful within. Life does not operate by chance encounters or fragile opportunities that can easily slip away. What is truly yours is bound to the inner state you occupy, not to external timing or force. When you remain loyal to the inner knowing of fulfillment, you place yourself in harmony with what already belongs to you. From that harmony, separation becomes impossible. Faithfulness within is not blind belief. It is quiet consistency. It is the choice to return again and again to the feeling of certainty, even when appearances suggest otherwise. The outer world may fluctuate, presenting moments of uncertainty or temporary absence, but these fluctuations do not cancel what has been accepted inwardly. They simply indicate that the process is still unfolding. What is aligned with your inner state must eventually appear, because life mirrors consciousness without exception. The fear of missing out arises only when attention is fixed on the surface of things. From that perspective, opportunities seem rare and timing seems fragile. But when attention rests inwardly, you recognize that fulfillment is not chasing events, it is drawing them. You are not required to run after what is meant for you. The moment you assume it as yours, it begins moving toward you through channels you could never plan. Even apparent losses are not evidence of failure. When something passes out of your experience, it does so because it no longer matches the state you are sustaining, or because it cannot support the fulfillment you have claimed. What is truly meant for you cannot be removed, delayed indefinitely, or given to another. It is secured by the inner agreement you have made with yourself. Remaining faithful within also means resisting the urge to constantly check the outer world for confirmation. The need for signs often weakens alignment by shifting focus back to uncertainty. Instead, trust the inner assurance. When you feel settled, When the desire no longer feels desperate, you are in the state that allows things to arrive naturally. Calm expectancy is the clearest signal of faithfulness. Life has an intelligence that knows how to deliver what belongs to you without strain. People will be moved, circumstances will shift, and timing will arrange itself in ways that appear effortless in hindsight. What once felt delayed will suddenly make sense. You will see that nothing was wasted and no moment was out of place. Stay loyal to the inner truth. Do not abandon it because of temporary appearances. What is meant for you is not lost in the world. It is held in consciousness until you are ready to receive it. When you remain faithful within, you make missing impossible. Everything that belongs to you will find its way into your experience, naturally and inevitably. The outer world is reorganizing itself to mirror your inner conviction, even when there is no visible evidence to support it yet. Life does not initiate change from the surface. It responds from within. The state you consistently occupy inwardly becomes the pattern the world must follow. When your inner conviction is steady, circumstances have no option but to adjust, rearrange, and align themselves to reflect that certainty. This reorganization is rarely instant because the outer world operates through sequences. People must be moved into position, conditions must shift, and timing must align. What feels like stillness is often motion happening beyond perception. Just as a structure cannot change without internal pressure, your environment cannot reflect a new reality until the inner state is firmly established. Once that conviction settles, the process becomes irreversible. Inner conviction is not intensity, it is stability. It is not how strongly you feel in a single moment, but how consistently you return to the same assumption. When you stop arguing with appearances and remain rooted in what you know inwardly, you withdraw energy from doubt and give it to certainty. That transfer of attention is what begins the external shift. The world responds not to effort, but to alignment. As the outer world reorganizes, it may appear chaotic. Certain things fall away. Familiar structures may no longer support you. This is not punishment or loss, it is adjustment. What no longer matches your inner conviction cannot remain unchanged. Relationships evolve, opportunities dissolve, and new paths quietly open. Each change serves the same purpose, to bring the visible world into agreement with the invisible decision you have made. You are not required to force these changes. Interference only slows the process by reintroducing doubt. Trust allows the reorganization to unfold with precision. When you maintain inner calm, events arrange themselves more smoothly. What once required effort begins to happen naturally, as though the world is cooperating rather than resisting. The most significant shifts occur after you have released the need to watch for them. When your inner conviction feels settled, the desire no longer dominates your thoughts. That is a sign that alignment has been achieved. From that state, manifestations appear suddenly, sometimes in ways that exceed expectation, because all preparation has already taken place. Remain loyal to your inner conviction. Do not measure progress by temporary appearances. The outer world is always catching up to the inner decision. Every movement, even those that confuse you now, is part of a larger realignment. Trust the process unfolding. The world is reshaping itself to match what you have already accepted as true within. Trusting the process allows effort to dissolve and certainty to take its place. Effort is born from doubt, from the belief that something must be pushed into existence or constantly defended to survive. When trust enters, struggle fades, because you no longer feel responsible for controlling every detail. You understand that life is not asking you to force outcomes, but to remain aligned with what you have already accepted as true within. Effort keeps attention fixed on the absence of what you desire. It measures progress, checks for signs, and questions timing. Trust, on the other hand, rests in the assurance that movement is already underway. When you trust the process, your inner dialogue softens. The constant need to do more gives way to a calm knowing that what is unfolding does not require your interference. From this state, certainty naturally replaces anxiety. Certainty is not blind optimism, it is a settled inner posture. It does not demand proof because it does not depend on appearances. Once certainty takes root, you stop negotiating with doubt. You no longer swing between belief and fear. Instead, you return to the same inner conclusion again and again. It is handled, it is arranged, it is done. This consistency stabilizes the inner world, and a stable inner world produces effortless results. When effort dissolves, action becomes inspired rather than forced. You still move, but you move naturally. Decisions feel lighter. Choices become clearer. You are no longer reacting to pressure, but responding to intuition. The right steps present themselves without strain, often at exactly the right moment. What once felt complicated becomes simple, because you are no longer trying to manage the entire outcome. Trust also removes the urgency that blocks alignment. Urgency signals lack. It implies that something is missing or in danger of being lost. When urgency fades, you operate from fullness rather than fear. From fullness, you allow life to meet you where you are. Opportunities flow toward you instead of being chased, and solutions appear without exhaustion. The process you are trusting is intelligent. It knows how to coordinate people, timing, and circumstances far beyond your conscious planning. Your role is not to supervise it, but to stay faithful to the inner certainty that initiated it. Each time you choose trust over effort, you strengthen alignment and quicken the unfolding. Rest in that trust. Let effort fall away. Certainty is not something you force, it is something you allow. And when certainty takes its place, life moves with you, not against you, bringing everything together with ease and precision. As you reflect on these truths, remember that nothing in your life is random or working against you. What feels slow is purposeful. What feels uncertain is being arranged with intelligence and care. The inner state you choose is shaping the reality you are moving toward, even now. Stay loyal to the knowing within you. Trust the unfolding without force, without fear, and without constant questioning. Everything is aligning in the order it must, and what belongs to you is already on its way into form. Thank you for listening. Beloved, I want you to pause for a moment and sense this truth. God has already declared your victory. The shift you've been praying for is not coming from outside of you, it is awakening within you. Before 2026, every unseen plan, every hidden alignment, every closed door will reveal why it had to be that way. Nothing was lost. It was simply being prepared to return multiplied. The divine never speaks in uncertainty. When he says, before 2026, everything will turn in your favor, it is not a prediction. It is a completed decree. The unseen realm has already rearranged itself. The situations that once resisted you are now bending in obedience to your inner conviction. What looked like failure was only formation. The pain, the waiting, the silence, all of it was God's way of refining the vessel for the blessing. You were never being denied, you were being prepared to receive something greater, something eternal. Listen closely. Your assumption of good is the language of creation. When you decide within yourself that life is working for you, heaven agrees. Your imagination is not wishful thinking, it is divine participation. The instant you feel the joy of answered prayer, the unseen world begins to move mountains in your favor. Time itself is a servant to belief. To those who dwell in fear, time delays. To those who dwell in faith, time collapses. As you enter this new season, stop waiting for the evidence. Walk as though it has already happened, and you will watch time bow to your conviction before 2026. Something will shift, the tides will turn, the path will open, the favor you once only dreamed of will become tangible. You will see doors unlock, relationships restored, and opportunities resurrected that seemed long dead. And when it happens, you'll realize it wasn't luck, it wasn't coincidence. It was divine order all along. Every detail was orchestrated by unseen love, working tirelessly for your good. So I say to you, hold the image of victory. Speak the end from the beginning. Rest in the knowing that what is meant for you cannot be delayed any longer. The moment you believe it, everything in creation rises to meet your faith. God has spoken. Before 2026, everything will turn in your favor. Believe it, feel it, and walk in it. The promise is not coming, it's already done. What you call delay is not denial, it is divine rearrangement. Life's pauses are not empty spaces. They are the sacred intervals where unseen forces shift and align what concerns you. When you feel that everything is standing still, understand that the stillness is the sound of rearrangement. The divine is never idle. Beneath the surface of your visible world, a quiet revolution is taking place, a reversal that will soon astonish even your doubts. Every disappointment has carried a hidden purpose. Every closed door was not rejection, but protection. What you thought was a setback was the perfect redirection. The path that seemed to collapse under your feet was never meant to end you, it was crafted to guide you into higher alignment. For when the divine reverses things, it does so not by forcing, but by reordering the unseen connections of your life, turning what was once against you into a servant of your destiny. Imagine a master weaver at work. From the front, the pattern may appear tangled and uncertain, yet behind it, a greater design is being woven with precision and love. So it is with your life. The threads of pain, confusion, and delay are being interlaced into a masterpiece that could not exist without them. You may not see it yet, but the reversal has already begun. The evidence will appear only after your heart learns to trust the invisible movements of grace. The shift begins in consciousness. The moment you release resistance, when you stop questioning why and start believing it is well, you step into harmony with divine order, and from that moment, life begins to bend toward your favor. The people who left, the opportunities that faded, the dreams that seemed to die, all of it will find its way back to you in new and perfect forms. You will not need to chase or strive. because divine reversal operates through magnetism, not struggle. The unseen power that governs your destiny does not need your worry to work. It only needs your agreement. When you rest in faith and see your good is already done, the reversal accelerates. Suddenly, what once stood as a barrier becomes a bridge. The situation that caused you pain becomes the channel of your blessing. The ones who dismissed you will witness your rising. You are not being punished by delay, you are being positioned for divine demonstration. What has been withheld was never lost. It was being multiplied, refined, and timed for your highest good. When the season shifts, it will happen suddenly, and everything will fall into place with ease. You will look back and understand that the reversal was in motion long before you could see it. So rest in this truth. Nothing has gone wrong. The divine order is intact. The rearrangement is happening quietly, perfectly, and powerfully. Very soon, what once worked against you will work for you, and you will know that the delay was only the disguise of destiny. The moment you conceived the desire within your heart, the end was already complete. What you call future is not a coming event, it is a finished reality awaiting your recognition. Creation is finished. The unseen realm holds every possibility you could ever imagine, already alive and whole, waiting for you to step into its frequency of belief. You are not chasing what is to come. You are aligning with what already is. The delay you perceive between desire and fulfillment is not time holding you back. It is consciousness catching up to what eternity has already prepared. When you desire something, it is not a new wish being born, it is memory rising from your spirit. You feel it because in a higher dimension, it already belongs to you. The future you long for, the healed body, the restored relationship, the abundance, the peace, exists now, vibrating in the unseen, as vivid and complete as any past experience. Your only work is to enter that state of fulfillment in imagination and feeling. To live as though it has already unfolded. In that sacred assumption, you harmonize your mind with divine truth, and life begins to rearrange itself to reflect what has always been yours. The outer world is slow to catch up, not because God hesitates, but because matter bends to consciousness. The physical dimension is merely the shadow of your inner conviction. When you dwell in lack, the shadow shows lack. When you dwell in completion, the shadow displays wholeness. You do not force change from the outside, you become the change within. That is the secret of all transformation. Think of the universe as a mirror. It cannot show you a reflection that you have not already assumed to be true. If you look into the mirror of life, waiting for evidence before believing, the image remains unchanged. But when you dare to believe without seeing, when you feel the joy of the answered prayer before it arrives, the mirror must obey. It has no choice but to reveal what you inwardly declare as real. The end has already happened, and the path to it is simply the unfolding of awareness. Every event, every person, every seeming coincidence you encounter is orchestrated to bridge your current perception to your fulfilled reality. Nothing is random. Every detail is leading you home to what is already done. This is why faith is not waiting. Faith is knowing. It is resting in the unseen completion and refusing to be moved by temporary appearances. The one who walks in this understanding lives in peace while others strive, They no longer beg heaven to act, for they know heaven has already finished its work. They live from the end, not toward it. So close your eyes and dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. See the end as real, feel it as done, and carry that state through your days. Soon, what is invisible will crystallize into visibility, and you will realize that nothing new ever happened. You simply awakened to what had always been true. Faith is not mere belief, it is creative conviction. It is the invisible hand that shapes reality. Every visible thing you now experience was once an unseen seed of faith in someone's consciousness. Faith does not wait for evidence, it creates evidence. The moment you feel your desire as real, you plant the seed in the soil of the unseen, and just as a seed knows how to become a tree, your inner conviction knows how to become your external world. Nothing more is required than the unwavering feeling that it already is. Most people try to manifest through effort, but manifestation is never born of struggle, it is born of inner certainty. The farmer does not dig up the seed every day to check its progress. He trusts the invisible process. So too must you trust the unseen realm once you have sown your faith. The feeling of fulfillment is the divine signal that sets creation in motion. When you dwell in that feeling, not as hope, but as fact, everything necessary for its expression begins to arrange itself on your behalf. Faith is the bridge between thought and reality. It is not passive acceptance. It is the active awareness that what you imagine is as real as what you touch. When you hold this awareness, life starts bending to meet you. People, opportunities, and circumstances you could never have orchestrated begin to move in your direction. You call it coincidence, heaven calls it alignment. The invisible world, once stirred by your faith, rushes to clothe itself in form. The challenge is that faith demands inner seeing before outer proof. The senses will often whisper that nothing is changing, that your prayer has gone unanswered. But the spiritual law is precise. What you feel as true must externalize, for consciousness alone is the cause of the visible world. The only delay lies in your wavering, in allowing doubt to uproot what faith has planted. Hold steady in the feeling of completion, and you will watch the unseen obey. To live by faith is to live from the end. It is to act, speak, and think from the standpoint that the miracle has already occurred. It is walking through the valley while knowing the mountaintop is already yours. You no longer plead for outcomes, you embody them. You no longer ask, when will it happen? You declare, it is done. And with that declaration, creation begins to rearrange itself to match your conviction. Every transformation begins with one seed of faith, a decision to feel it now, to believe it now, to live it now. Do not underestimate the quiet power of that decision. What is invisible today will become visible tomorrow, because the unseen is always responding to the vibration of belief. So close your eyes and feel the reality of your desire as though it were already here. Let gratitude replace striving. Let peace replace doubt. In that stillness, the unseen begins to move. And when it finally appears, you will realize it was never far away. It was simply waiting for your faith to make it visible. The world you see around you is not happening to you, it is happening through you. Every experience, every encounter, every circumstance is an echo of the beliefs you hold within. Your inner assumption is the silent architect of your reality, long before anything takes form in the outer world. Life is not responding to your words or your wishes, it is responding to your assumption, the quiet, persistent feeling of what you believe to be real. When you assume something with conviction, you enter into the state of it. You become one with the feeling of its truth, and that inner union commands the outer world to mirror it. This is not imagination as escape, it is imagination as creation. The invisible laws of the universe obey the tone of your inner being. If you assume lack, life must echo scarcity. If you assume abundance, life must echo prosperity. The mirror cannot show a face that you have not first revealed to it. You may think circumstances are independent of your mind, but they are nothing more than crystallized patterns of your inner state. Every repeated emotion, every sustained belief, gathers substance in the unseen until it solidifies into fact. This is why two people can live in the same environment and experience completely different realities. One sees limitation, the other sees opportunity, because each is living within the echo of their own assumption. Your task then is not to fight the external world, but to reform the internal one. To complain about conditions is to argue with your own reflection. When you shift the assumption within, when you dare to believe that you are already loved, already favored, already provided for, the mirror of life must reflect that transformation. The world has no power of its own. It simply obeys the command issued by your consciousness. The power lies in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Words without conviction change nothing. But when you feel the truth of your desire so completely that it becomes natural to you, you have already issued the command. The outer world will rearrange itself to comply, even if it must move mountains to do so. The key is persistence. You must remain faithful to the inner reality, even when appearances contradict it. Do not chase the reflection. Change the image. Stop looking for proof and become the proof. Assume the end with peace, not strain. For assumption born of ease carries authority, while assumption born of desperation carries resistance. When you relax into the feeling of already having, you step into harmony with divine law. Soon you will notice the world shifting subtly. Conversations change, opportunities arise, the atmosphere around you feels lighter. Nothing happened by chance. The outer world merely obeyed your new assumption. Reality had no choice but to bow to the command of your inner conviction. Time is not your enemy, it is your servant. It does not move blindly or independently. It bends and flows according to the rhythm of your belief. What you call waiting is not delay, but alignment. The moment you enter the state of fulfillment in consciousness, time rearranges itself to deliver the outer reflection of that inner reality. To the one who lives in doubt, time drags endlessly. To the one who lives in faith, time collapses, and what once seemed distant rushes to meet them with divine precision. We have been taught to measure time in hours, days, and years, but time is not measured by clocks, it is measured by consciousness. The state you dwell in determines how you experience it. When you live in the vibration of it is done, your entire being moves into the frequency of completion, and life must rearrange to match it. You begin to meet people by coincidence, doors open suddenly, paths clear unexpectedly. These are not miracles from outside of you. They are the visible signs of time obeying your belief. The spirit of belief does not wait for tomorrow. It lives fully in now. To believe is to step beyond the boundaries of linear time. You no longer look forward to what will come. You look from the awareness that it already has come. In that sacred moment of realization, You transcend the limitations of past and future. You dwell in the eternal present, where all things are already complete. This is why those who hold unwavering faith often experience rapid shifts, because they have stepped into the timeless state where fulfillment already exists. When you feel the joy, gratitude, and peace of your answered prayer now, time is commanded to shorten the distance between inner and outer manifestation. The delay dissolves, and what once seemed far away appears suddenly, effortlessly. Time obeys the one who no longer worships it. Most people bow to time, believing that it controls the unfolding of their destiny. But time has no authority over the awakened mind. It bends to conviction, accelerates for certainty, and stands still for hesitation. Every second you spend doubting your desires stretches time. Every moment you feel its reality contracts it. The timeline of your manifestation is written by the strength of your inner knowing. So, if you wish for something to unfold quickly, stop looking at the clock. Look within. Enter the feeling of already having what you desire. Let gratitude fill you as if the promise has already arrived. The more real that feeling becomes, the faster the world will rearrange to express it. Time is not an obstacle to faith, it is the instrument through which faith performs its magic. When you stand firm in the awareness that all things are already yours, time rushes to serve that awareness. Suddenly, opportunities align, doors open, and what once required years happens in moments. For the spirit of belief commands time itself, and time joyfully obeys. Everything that has seemed delayed, denied, or disrupted in your life is not chaos, it is divine choreography. Heaven's order is never in disorder. It only appears hidden when you look through the eyes of impatience. Before 2026, what once felt like confusion will be revealed as precision. You will see that every detour had a purpose, every closed door concealed protection, and every delay was a divine pause that allowed greater things to align perfectly for your favor. There are seasons in life when it feels as if nothing is moving, when prayers echo in silence and promises seem suspended in the air. Yet these are the moments when heaven is most active. The unseen realm works quietly, rearranging circumstances, shifting hearts, and preparing outcomes that will exceed your understanding. Divine timing is not about postponement, it is about perfection. The universe refuses to deliver anything incomplete. When the time appears slow, it is because heaven is ensuring that nothing meant for you will arrive half-formed or premature. Before 2026, the threads of confusion will weave into clarity. You will look back and see how every unanswered prayer was an answered protection. The relationships that ended will reveal why they had to close for something truer to emerge. The seasons of isolation will show themselves as the sacred ground where your roots deepened. Heaven was not ignoring you, it was preparing the stage for the unveiling of divine order, a manifestation that could only occur after every piece was in its rightful place. The truth is that the divine never loses control. Even your perceived mistakes have been used as materials for your elevation. Every step, even the ones that seemed backward, was part of the choreography that brings you to the threshold of fulfillment. Nothing was wasted, and nothing will be wasted. The universe has an impeccable memory. It remembers your faith, your tears, your endurance, and it will return them to you as blessings, pressed down and running over. When divine ardor is revealed, the speed of your transformation will astonish you. What once took years will unfold in weeks. What once resisted will yield with ease. You will realize that you were never behind schedule, for the schedule itself was sacred. The waiting time was not wasted time. It was the sacred womb where the promise was being matured. So do not mourn the delays. They are the proof that heaven is timing your blessing for perfect impact. Trust that before 2026, the fog will lift and what once felt unfair will shine with divine reason. You will understand that heaven was never late. It was aligning everything to turn completely in your favor. The story of your waiting will become the testimony of your becoming. What once appeared as delay will soon be revealed as destiny. And you will know that heaven's order has been perfect all along. My beloved, as we come to the close of this message, let this truth settle deep within you. God has already written your victory. What you are waiting for is not in the distance, it is unfolding now, perfectly, in divine sequence. Every delay has meaning, every challenge is preparation, and every moment is drawing you closer to the fulfillment already ordained for your life. Before 2026, what once stood against you will stand beside you. Every door that closed will make sense. Every tear will bear fruit. And every hidden plan of heaven will be revealed as favor working on your behalf. You are not moving toward your blessing. Your blessing is moving toward you. The unseen is aligning, the visible is catching up, and time itself is bowing to your belief. So stand firm in faith. Feel your end as already complete. Walk as though the promise has been fulfilled, because it has. The reversal, the restoration, the divine shift, it is already in motion. And when it all comes together, you will realize that none of it was random. The divine was guiding you all along, through every silence and storm, toward this moment of realization and grace. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing. Thank you for opening your heart to truth and for allowing these words to remind you of your divine power and purpose. May you walk in peace with unwavering faith, knowing that heaven's order is perfect and that everything, absolutely everything, is turning in your favor. Thank you, and remember, your miracle is not on the way, it's already here. There comes a moment in every life when striving exhausts itself, when effort no longer produces results, and the heart quietly asks, is there another way? That moment is not failure, it is revelation. It is the turning point. Not because something outside of you has changed, but because something within you is ready to shift. Your turning point is here, and it begins not with more effort, but with letting go. Most people believe they must force life to comply with their desires. They push, they strain, they wrestle with circumstances, hoping that persistence alone will bend reality. Yet the greatest transformations do not come through struggle. They come through surrender. Letting go does not mean giving up on your desire. It means releasing the tension, the doubt, and the inner resistance that blocks its natural expression. When you let go, you stop arguing with the present moment. You no longer declare that this is not enough or this should be different. Instead, you rest in a deeper knowing that life responds to your inner acceptance, not your outer anxiety. The moment you stop chasing, you begin attracting. The moment you release control, you align with power. Receiving is not something you do with your hands, it is something you do with your consciousness. You receive when you inwardly agree that what you desire is already yours in essence. This agreement is quiet. It does not shout. It does not beg. It simply knows. And what you know inwardly must eventually clothe itself in form. Your inner world is not a reflection of your outer circumstances. Your outer circumstances are a reflection of your inner world. When you change the way you see, feel, and assume, life has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. This is why waiting anxiously delays manifestation, while calm expectancy accelerates it. Faith is not tension, it is ease. It feels natural, ordinary, and settled. Letting go means releasing the need to figure out how. The mind loves to calculate, to predict, to worry about timing and method. But the deeper intelligence of life already knows the path of least resistance. Your task is not to direct the process, but to accept the end as done. When you rest in the feeling of fulfillment, the path reveals itself without strain. Your turning point arrives the moment you decide that inner peace is more valuable than outer proof. When you choose to feel complete now rather than waiting for circumstances to validate you, something profound happens. You step out of the cycle of wanting and into the state of receiving. Wanting says, I lack. Receiving says, I accept. Now is the only moment in which creation occurs. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. The future is shaped by the assumptions you hold in this present instant. If you assume delay, you experience delay. If you assume fulfillment, fulfillment moves toward you. Life is always responding not to your words, but to your state of being. So release the struggle. Release the urgency, release the belief that you must earn what is already yours in consciousness. Sit quietly within yourself and accept the reality you choose as if it were already true. Feel the relief of completion. Feel the calm of knowing. That feeling is the signal. That feeling is the invitation. Change does not arrive as a dramatic event imposed upon you by the world. It does not depend on luck, timing, or the actions of others. True change begins quietly, invisibly, and inwardly. Long before circumstances shift, before opportunities appear, before doors open or close, something moves within your awareness. This inner movement is the real turning point. Everything that follows is simply the outer echo of that internal decision. Most people wait for external conditions to improve before they allow themselves to feel different. They wait for success before feeling confident, for harmony before feeling peaceful, for proof before feeling secure. Yet this waiting keeps them locked in the very patterns they wish to escape. The outer world can only mirror what is already accepted within. When awareness remains unchanged, circumstances repeat themselves in different forms. The same story plays again and again, wearing new faces but carrying the same emotional tone. An inner shift in awareness is not about forcing positive thoughts or denying present conditions. It is about changing the position from which you observe life. When you alter your self-concept, how you see yourself, what you quietly assume to be true about your life, you change the lens through which reality is interpreted. From that moment on, the world begins to reorganize itself around this new inner assumption. This shift often feels subtle. It may begin as a calm realization that you no longer need to struggle, explain, or justify your desires. You simply accept that they belong to you. The moment you accept a new state inwardly, you detach from the old one. You are no longer trying to escape the past. You have already moved beyond it in consciousness. What remains is simply the process of the outer world catching up. Awareness is creative. It does not passively observe reality. It actively shapes it. Whatever you consistently return to in thought and feeling becomes familiar, and what feels familiar becomes your experience. When you dwell in lack, lack feels natural. When you dwell in fulfillment, fulfillment begins to feel normal. Life faithfully reflects what you have normalized within yourself. The turning point within often arrives when effort collapses. When trying harder no longer works, you are invited to see differently. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. You begin to realize that peace is not the reward for success, it is the doorway to it. Confidence is not produced by achievement, it precedes it. Freedom is not granted by circumstances, it is claimed internally first. Once this inner shift occurs, you move through life differently. You speak differently, respond differently, and expect differently. Without conscious effort, your actions align with your new awareness. Opportunities appear, not because you chased them, but because you are now in harmony with them. People respond to you differently because you are no longer asking life to confirm your worth. You are expressing it. Letting go is often misunderstood as loss, weakness, or resignation. Yet in truth, it is one of the most powerful inner movements a person can make. It is not the abandonment of desire, nor is it indifference to outcomes. Letting go is an act of trust. Trust in life, trust in your inner knowing, and trust in the unseen processes that shape experience. When you release struggle, you are not stepping away from creation, you are stepping into alignment with it. Struggle is born from the belief that life must be forced to cooperate. It tightens the mind, contracts the body, and keeps awareness fixed on what is missing. In this state, effort becomes strained and expectation turns anxious. The more one pushes, the more resistance is felt, because struggle quietly affirms that fulfillment is distant. Letting go dissolves this tension. It shifts the inner posture from grasping to allowing, from demanding to receiving. Releasing struggle does not mean doing nothing. It means seizing the inner argument with the present moment. You stop telling life that it is late, unfair, or incomplete. Instead, you rest in the understanding that what is unfolding is part of a larger movement that does not require your anxiety to function. Life does not need to be micromanaged, it needs to be trusted. When you let go, you surrender the need to control how things must happen. The mind often insists on specific paths, timelines, and conditions. Yet life operates through harmony, not force. By loosening your grip, you allow intelligence greater than personal effort to take the lead. Solutions arise naturally, often in ways the thinking mind could not have predicted. What once felt blocked begins to flow. Trust creates space, and space invites movement. When struggle fades, awareness becomes receptive. You begin to notice opportunities that were previously invisible because your attention was consumed by tension. Actions taken from trust feel lighter and more effective. They are not fueled by fear of failure, but guided by quiet confidence. Life responds to this state because it recognizes coherence rather than conflict. Letting go also releases you from the exhausting need to constantly check, worry, and measure progress. You no longer ask, is it working? Because you are no longer operating from doubt. Instead, there is a settled feeling that what is accepted inwardly is already set in motion. This calm expectancy is not passive, it is deeply creative. As struggle dissolves, timing aligns. Events unfold with an ease that feels almost effortless. not because effort is absent, but because it is no longer distorted by resistance. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, saying the right words without strain. Life responds naturally because you are no longer obstructing it with fear. Letting go is not giving up control. It is recognizing where true control resides. It lives not in force, but in trust. When you release struggle, you open the door for life to meet you with the same openness, and what once felt delayed begins to arrive with grace. Receiving is not an action that depends on circumstances, permission, or timing. It is a state of consciousness. Long before anything appears in visible form, it is first welcomed inwardly. What you allow yourself to accept as real within your awareness quietly sets the boundaries of what you experience in life. You do not receive what you hope for, wish for, or endlessly think about. You receive what you inwardly agree to be true. Most people live in a state of waiting rather than receiving. They mentally reach toward a future moment when conditions will finally allow them to feel fulfilled, secure, or whole. This posture of waiting keeps desire alive but fulfillment distant. Receiving, by contrast, begins when the inner conversation shifts from I want to I accept. Acceptance is not imagination alone, it is a felt agreement that something belongs to you at the level of identity and expectation. Consciousness is the atmosphere in which life unfolds. Whatever feels natural within it tends to express itself without resistance. If lack feels familiar, life organizes itself around lack. If abundance, peace, or success feels normal within, the outer world gradually arranges itself to match that inner climate. This is not coincidence, it is correspondence. Life mirrors the state you consistently occupy. Receiving inwardly requires permission. Many people unknowingly deny themselves by questioning worthiness, timing, or possibility. These quiet inner objections block reception more effectively than any external obstacle. The moment you grant yourself permission to receive, to feel satisfied now, to feel chosen now, to feel complete now, you shift into a new state. From that state, different outcomes become not only possible, but inevitable. To receive is to feel the end before the means appear. It is to embody the emotional tone of fulfillment without demanding immediate proof. This inner embodiment is powerful because it signals completion rather than absence. Life responds to completion by providing the bridges that make it visible. When fulfillment is accepted inwardly, the outer world is compelled to reflect it in form, timing, and experience. Receiving also softens the effort of becoming. You are no longer trying to transform yourself into someone worthy of good things. Instead, you live from the assumption that you already are. Actions taken from this state feel aligned rather than forced. You move through life with a quiet expectancy that what you need will meet you because you are already living from the consciousness of having. This state does not ignore challenges, it reinterprets them. Difficulties are no longer seen as denial, but as transitional movements. Because you have accepted the end inwardly, temporary contradictions do not disturb your peace. You understand that appearances are catching up to an inner decision already made. What you accept inwardly becomes your lived experience because consciousness precedes form. Life is not responding to effort or desire alone, it is responding to agreement. When you agree within yourself that something is yours, calmly, naturally, without strain, you step into the state of receiving. From that state, life has no choice but to respond accordingly. Faith is often mistaken for intensity, emotional highs, or forceful affirmations, but true belief is far quieter than that. It does not demand attention or require constant reinforcement. Real faith feels natural, relaxed, and settled, like knowing the sun will rise tomorrow. It is not something you strain to maintain, it is something you rest in. Calm expectancy is the unmistakable signature of genuine belief. When belief is real, there is no urgency. Urgency is born from doubt. The mind that repeatedly asks when, how, or why not yet is revealing that it has not fully accepted the outcome as certain. Calm expectancy, on the other hand, carries no anxiety about timing. It assumes fulfillment as inevitable, even if the path is unseen. This assumption removes tension from the process and allows life to unfold without interference. True faith does not argue with present appearances. It does not deny what is visible, but it also does not submit to it as final. It understands that appearances are temporary expressions of past assumptions. Because of this understanding, faith remains undisturbed. There is an inner composure that says, "This will resolve itself," without the need to explain or convince anyone else. Relaxed belief is powerful because it feels normal. What feels normal to you becomes your experience. When fulfillment feels ordinary rather than extraordinary, you are aligned with it. Calm expectancy does not place desire on a pedestal, it integrates it into identity. You are not reaching for a better future. You are living from the certainty that it is already forming around you. This kind of faith expresses itself through subtle changes in behavior and perception. You stop obsessively checking for signs. You no longer measure progress daily. You respond to life rather than react to it. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions feel clearer. Without conscious effort, you begin to act in ways that are consistent with your expectation because belief naturally guides action. Quiet confidence is another hallmark of true faith. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It does not need reassurance from others. It is content to remain unseen because it is anchored within. This confidence allows you to move through uncertainty without losing your sense of direction. You trust that even detours are part of alignment. Calm expectancy also frees you from emotional extremes. You are not devastated by temporary setbacks nor overly dependent on quick successes. Because you know the outcome is secure, fluctuations along the way lose their power over you. You remain centered, and this emotional stability becomes a fertile ground for fulfillment. Faith that feels natural is sustainable. It does not exhaust the mind or body. It coexists with daily life rather than interrupting it. You can live fully in the present while knowing that what you have accepted inwardly is on its way into form. True belief is not loud. It does not push. It does not chase. It waits with certainty, moves with ease, and trusts without strain. In that calm expectancy, life finds the perfect conditions to respond. Every experience you encounter is shaped not by chance, but by the assumptions you carry, often unconsciously, about yourself and the world. An assumption is not merely a thought you entertain once in a while. It is a quiet agreement you live from. It is what feels true to you, what you expect without effort, and what you rarely question. These assumptions form the invisible framework through which reality is filtered. And because life is responsive, what you consistently assume to be true must express itself. Assumptions operate beneath deliberate thinking. You may consciously desire one thing while unconsciously assuming another. When this happens, the assumption always prevails. You can affirm success, yet if failure feels familiar, life will continue to reflect struggle. This is why repetition alone does not change outcomes. Only when an assumption shifts, when a new state feels natural, does experience begin to change. What you assume about yourself becomes your identity, and identity directs behavior, perception, and reaction. If you assume you are overlooked, you unconsciously move through life expecting dismissal, interpreting neutral events as confirmation. If you assume you are valued, you interpret the same events differently and respond with confidence. The outer world simply mirrors these inner positions without judgment. Assumptions do not need effort to manifest because they feel normal. You do not try to prove what you already believe, you live from it. Life responds to this lived conviction by arranging circumstances that reinforce it. This is not because the world is fixed, but because consciousness is creative. Reality organizes itself around what consciousness accepts as true. Consistency is the key. A fleeting positive thought cannot override a deeply held assumption, just as a brief moment of doubt cannot undo a settled belief. Whatever you repeatedly return to in thought, feeling, and expectation becomes your dominant state. Over time, this state hardens into fact. This is why awareness of inner dialogue is so important. The stories you tell yourself in quiet moments are the ones life listens to. Changing assumptions does not require force, it requires recognition. You must first notice what you are already assuming. How do you expect interactions to go? What do you quietly believe about opportunity, love, or success? Once seen, an assumption can be replaced by choosing a new one and allowing yourself to feel it as true. Feeling is crucial because feeling gives an assumption solidity. When a new assumption is accepted, behavior adjusts effortlessly. You do not need to monitor every action. Alignment happens naturally. You speak differently, make choices differently, and interpret events through a new lens. Life then responds to this shift by presenting experiences that match the new assumption. Reality is not rigid, it is responsive. It takes its shape from the assumptions you consistently occupy. When you deliberately choose what you assume to be true and remain faithful to it, expression is inevitable. What is accepted within must appear without. The power to transform your life does not exist in the past or the future. It exists only now. The present moment is not a bridge to something greater. It is the creative point from which everything emerges. Waiting for the right time, the perfect condition, or a future breakthrough quietly postpones change. Transformation does not respond to delay, it responds to presence. Most people live mentally ahead of themselves, projecting fulfillment into tomorrow. They imagine that peace, success, or freedom will arrive once certain conditions are met. This habit of waiting reinforces the belief that fulfillment is absent now, and what consciousness accepts as absent remains so. Creation does not occur in anticipation, it occurs in acceptance. The present moment is where acceptance can happen. Now is where assumptions are formed and reinforced. What you feel, expect, and accept in this instant determines what unfolds next. Each moment is a fresh opportunity to choose a state of being. You are not bound by what happened earlier today or yesterday. The past only persists because it is repeatedly reactivated in the present through memory and emotional identification. When attention is withdrawn from it, its influence dissolves. Transformation happens when you stop asking the present to justify itself and instead allow yourself to feel the state you desire now. You do not need to wait for permission to feel confident, whole, or at peace. These are inner positions, not external rewards. The moment you occupy them, you shift the trajectory of experience. Life begins to respond to who you are being now, not to who you hope to become later. Waiting often disguises fear. It feels safer to postpone change than to claim it internally. Yet the risk is that life continues to mirror indecision. The present moment is always neutral until you define it. When you define it through expectation of lack, lack continues. When you define it through fulfillment, fulfillment gains momentum. The creative nature of now lies in its immediacy. There is no delay between acceptance and impact at the level of consciousness. The delay only appears in the visible world as events rearrange themselves, but the decision itself is instant. The moment you choose a new state inwardly, the old one loses authority. Living in the present does not mean ignoring plans or responsibilities. It means refusing to place your sense of being on hold. You can plan without postponing fulfillment. You can move forward without waiting to feel complete. This inner completeness stabilizes action and sharpens intuition. When you understand that now is the only creative moment, impatience fades. There is nothing to rush toward because everything begins here. You stop measuring progress by external signs and start recognizing internal alignment as the true indicator of change. Transformation is not something that arrives, it is something you allow, and it is always allowed in the present moment. Now is where life listens. Now is where reality takes instruction. As we bring this message to a close, remember this truth. Your turning point has never been somewhere in the future. It has always lived within you. Every shift you seek begins with awareness, deepens through trust, and becomes real through acceptance. When you let go of struggle, you open space for life to move. When you choose to receive inwardly, life reflects that choice outwardly. Calm expectancy replaces effort. Assumptions reshape experience. And the present moment becomes the doorway through which transformation enters. You are not waiting for change, you are deciding it. The moment you align your inner state with what you desire, the outer world must respond in time. Nothing is wasted, nothing is delayed. Life is always answering the state you consistently occupy. Choose peace over pressure, trust over control, and knowing over doubt. From that place, everything unfolds naturally. Your power is not in forcing outcomes, but in allowing truth to settle within you. Let this be the moment you stop postponing fulfillment and start living from it. This is your turning point. Receive it now. Thank you. The win is not coming. The win is not approaching. The win is already done. What you are witnessing now is not the creation of victory, but its arrival into visibility. Long before anything appears in the world of form, it is first completed in the world of consciousness. Every outcome you desire is first born within, sealed in awareness, and only then projected outward as experience. You must understand this clearly. Nothing external moves first. Life responds. Reality echoes. The outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself according to the state you occupy within. The moment you accepted the idea of victory as true, truly felt it as real, the decision was made, the seed was planted, and once planted, it does not ask permission to grow. It unfolds by law. You are not here to make it happen. You are here to allow what has already happened to express itself. This is where many become restless. They look for signs. They ask, where is it? But the question itself reveals the mistake. When you ask where it is, you step out of the state of having and into the state of waiting, and waiting delays what is already yours. Instead, stand still inwardly, rest in the knowing, feel the quiet confidence of someone who has already won. Not excitement, not desperation, but calm certainty. When something is truly done, you do not chase it. You move differently. You think differently. You carry yourself as one who knows. That inner shift is the signal. Reality does not respond to words or wishes, it responds to assumption. What you consistently assume to be true hardens into fact, not because you force it, but because consciousness has no alternative but to express itself. Right now, life is reorganizing. People are moving, circumstances are aligning, opportunities are forming, conversations are being stirred, all without your effort. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the inner victory. Do not argue with appearances. Appearances are always late. They are reflections of past states, not present truth. If the mirror shows an old image, you do not fight the mirror. You change your position. Remain in the end. See from fulfillment, not toward it. Think from success, not about success. Act from certainty, not hope. The moment you live as the person who has already received, the bridge of events activates, and it unfolds naturally, effortlessly, in ways your reasoning mind could never predict. You do not need to know how. You do not need to control when. You only need to stay loyal to the state of completion, because the win is done. What you call time is simply the delay between assumption and appearance. And that delay collapses the moment you stop questioning and start embodying. So walk today as one who has already arrived. Speak with the confidence of fulfillment. Move with the calm authority of someone whose victory is inevitable because it already exists. The win is done. It is not chasing you. It is entering your reality now. The victory never begins on the outside. It does not start with circumstances changing, people agreeing, doors opening, or visible success appearing. All of those are effects, not causes. The true beginning of every win is an internal decision, often so quiet that the world never notices it. Long before life rearranges itself, something shifts within you. A new inner position is taken, a conclusion is reached, and once that conclusion is accepted as true, the outcome is already sealed. Within you exists the source of every experience you will ever encounter. What you consistently hold as real in consciousness becomes the blueprint from which life must operate. The outer world does not initiate events, it follows instructions. Those instructions are not spoken aloud, they are felt, assumed, and lived internally. When you accept victory within, when you stop debating it and start knowing it, reality begins its slow but certain movement toward matching that inner state. Most people misunderstand this process because they look for proof before belief. They want to see results first and then feel victorious. But that is the reverse order. Inner victory always precedes outer confirmation. The feeling of success, peace, fulfillment, or achievement must be entered before the world can mirror it. When you wait for permission from circumstances, you remain locked in the state of waiting. When you give yourself permission internally, the door is already open. This inner victory is not emotional excitement or forced positivity. It is calm, settled, and grounded. It feels like relief, like certainty, like something that no longer needs to be defended or explained. When you have truly accepted victory within, you stop arguing with yourself. Doubt loses its power because the decision has already been made. You are no longer hoping, it is done in consciousness. Once this inner state is assumed, your thoughts naturally change, your reactions soften, your expectations align. Even your silence carries confidence. You do not strain or push because effort belongs to those who are unsure. Inner victory produces stillness, and from that stillness, life begins to reorganize itself. The world you see now may not immediately reflect this change, but that does not matter. What you are observing is a delayed echo of former assumptions. The present moment is always catching up to what you once believed. When you understand this, you stop being disturbed by appearances. You know they are temporary, transitional, and powerless to stop what has already been accepted within. Victory within means you have already crossed the finish line internally. Time is no longer a concern. The how dissolves. The when becomes irrelevant. You trust the unfolding because the result is no longer in question. It is simply moving from the invisible to the visible. And when the outer world finally reflects this inner decision, it feels natural, almost inevitable, not miraculous, not shocking, just aligned. Because the real triumph did not happen out there. It happened the moment you claimed it within. Nothing exists independently of consciousness. Every experience, circumstance, relationship, and outcome appears only after it has first been accepted inwardly. What you call reality is not an objective force acting upon you, it is a reflection responding to you. Consciousness is the source, the cause, and the substance behind everything that appears in your world. Without awareness, nothing has meaning, form, or direction. You do not experience life as it is. You experience life as you are conscious of it being. The same situation can bring joy to one person and despair to another, not because the situation is different, but because the state of consciousness observing it is different. This alone reveals a profound truth. The outer world has no fixed meaning of its own. Meaning is assigned from within, and once assigned, reality conforms to it. Every assumption you hold about yourself, about others, about what is possible, acts as a silent command. These assumptions operate whether you are aware of them or not. They shape your expectations, guide your reactions, and influence the events that unfold. Life faithfully follows the pattern set by consciousness because it cannot do otherwise. There is no external power deciding your fate. The deciding factor is always the state you occupy internally. When you change your state of consciousness, you do not need to force change in the world. The world must adjust automatically. This is why effort applied only to the outer level often leads to frustration. Trying to fix appearances without shifting the inner cause is like rearranging shadows while ignoring the object casting them. True change begins at the level of awareness. Consciousness does not respond to words, affirmations, or rituals alone. It responds to what you accept as true. You may say you believe something, but if your inner dialogue contradicts it, consciousness follows the deeper assumption. What you consistently feel, expect, and assume defines your reality far more than what you occasionally declare. Understanding that consciousness is the only reality brings responsibility, but also freedom. Responsibility because you can no longer blame circumstances or people as the true cause. Freedom because you realize nothing outside of you has power over your experience. The moment you accept, a new inner truth, the world begins to reorganize itself to reflect it. This does not mean ignoring the physical world or denying what you see. It means understanding its role. The outer world is feedback. It is information showing you what state you have been living in. Once you see it this way, you stop reacting emotionally to appearances. Instead, you use them as guidance, adjusting your inner position accordingly. As consciousness shifts, your perception shifts. You notice opportunities you once overlooked. You respond with calm where you once reacted with fear. Your expectations subtly change, and with them, your outcomes. Life begins to feel cooperative rather than resistant, not because the world has changed, but because you have. When consciousness is recognized as the only reality, you stop chasing results and start embodying states. You become the person who already lives in alignment with what you desire. From that alignment, experiences naturally flow. Lao. Reality is not something you enter, it is something that emerges from you. And as you become aware of this truth, you step into the quiet power of knowing that every change you seek begins, lives, and is fulfilled within consciousness itself. Feeling is the silent language through which consciousness accepts an idea as real. Thoughts may introduce possibilities, words may describe desires, but feeling is what gives them life. Without feeling, an idea remains distant, intellectual, and powerless. The moment feeling is involved, the idea is no longer imagined, it is experienced. And what is experienced internally must eventually be expressed externally. Every state of being carries a feeling. Confidence has a feeling. Fulfillment has a feeling. Lack has a feeling. Waiting has a feeling. Life does not respond to what you want. It responds to the feeling state you consistently occupy. When a feeling becomes familiar, it becomes natural. When it becomes natural, it becomes your reality. This is why forcing thoughts rarely produces lasting change. You can repeat statements endlessly, but if the feeling beneath them contradicts the words, consciousness follows the feeling. Feeling is belief made tangible. It is the bridge between imagination and experience. The moment you feel something to be true, consciousness accepts it as fact, and the process of manifestation begins. Feeling is not emotion in the dramatic sense. It is not excitement, hype, or intensity. It is the quiet inner knowing that something is already so. It feels like ease, like normality, like acceptance. When you imagine an outcome and allow yourself to feel how natural it would be if it were already true, you have crossed the gateway. At that point, the desire is no longer future based, it has been internalized. Most people remain outside this gateway because they imagine without feeling or they feel. L. Without persistence. They briefly touch the state and then return to doubt, impatience, or fear. The feeling must be sustained not through effort, but through familiarity. The more often you return to the feeling of fulfillment, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it replaces the old state entirely. The outer world always reflects the dominant feeling you carry. If you feel unseen, life mirrors invisibility. If you feel chosen, life presents confirmation. If you feel complete, circumstances rearrange themselves around that completeness. The feeling does not force events, it invites them. This is why timing is never the issue. The delay between desire and manifestation is not about external conditions aligning, it is about the feeling becoming stable within you. Once the feeling of having becomes stronger than the feeling of wanting, the shift is inevitable. You do not need to visualize perfectly or imagine endlessly. One moment of genuine feeling is more powerful than hours of empty repetition. That moment imprints consciousness with certainty. And consciousness, once convinced, does not reverse its course. As you learn to move into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you begin to live differently. You react less, you anticipate less, you trust more. Your inner world settles, and that inner settlement becomes the signal that draws corresponding experiences into your life. Feeling is the gateway because it is the point where imagination becomes identity. When you feel something as true, you are no longer reaching for it, you are being it. And life, without exception, responds to being. What you see around you is never happening in real time. The outer world is always slightly behind, reflecting decisions, assumptions, and inner states that were once held as true. This delay is not a flaw in the process, it is part of the structure of experience. Reality does not instantly mirror every inner shift, but it must eventually align. What you are witnessing now is the past expressing itself, not the present truth you have already accepted within. Once you understand this, impatience begins to dissolve. You stop demanding immediate proof because you recognize that the evidence is already in motion. The moment you changed your inner position, the direction of your life changed. Circumstances did not resist, they simply had to reorganize. People, events, timing, and opportunities require sequence, and sequence requires time. The movement may be invisible, but it is precise. The outer world cannot jump ahead of consciousness, it follows it. Like a shadow, it adjusts only after the form has moved. When you adopt a new assumption about who you are, what is possible, or what is already done, the shadow must eventually change its shape. No amount of doubt can stop that process once the assumption has been impressed deeply enough. This is why reacting emotionally to current appearances can undo progress. When you treat the present moment as final, you reinforce the old state that produced it. But when you see the outer world as catching up, you remain anchored in the new state. You no longer negotiate with appearances or ask them for validation. You understand their role as delayed reflections, not final verdicts. Faithfulness to the inner state is what allows the catching up to complete itself. Each time you return to the feeling of certainty, you stabilize the new direction. Each time you refuse to be shaken by contradiction, you shorten the delay. Not because you are forcing reality, but because you are no longer sending mixed signals through doubt and fear. There's a quiet discipline required here, not effort, but consistency. Consistency in how you see yourself, consistency in what you assume is true, consistency in the inner company, conversations you allow to continue. When this consistency is maintained, the outer world has no choice but to align. Often, the alignment arrives in unexpected ways. The mind tries to predict the path, but reality moves through channels you cannot anticipate. A conversation changes, a delay becomes an advantage, an apparent setback redirects you towards something better aligned. When the outer world catches up, it does not announce itself. It simply clicks into place. This understanding brings peace during transition. You stop labeling the in between as failure or stagnation. You recognize it as movement. You are not waiting for life to begin, life is already responding. The process is unfolding whether you see it or not. When the outer world finally reflects the inner shift, it feels natural, almost ordinary. That is the clearest sign that it was always meant to happen, because what appears effortless in form was already completed in consciousness. So remain steady. Do not rush the mirror. Let the reflection adjust in its own time. The outer world is not ignoring you. It is catching up to who you have already decided to be. A single moment of belief can open the door, but persistence is what keeps it open until reality walks through. Assumption begins the process, but persistence completes it. Without persistence, the mind drifts back to old habits old stories, and old identities. With persistence, the new state becomes dominant, and once it dominates, the outcome is inevitable. An assumption is not something you repeat once and forget. It is a position you occupy. It is the quiet decision about who you are and what is true for you. Persistence means returning to that decision again and again, especially when nothing outside appears to support it. Not through force or tension, but through loyalty. Most people abandon their assumptions not because they are wrong, but because they look for confirmation too soon. When evidence does not immediately appear, doubt enters, and doubt shifts the state. The moment a state shifts, the direction shifts. Persistence prevents this. It keeps consciousness aligned with the end, regardless of temporary contradictions. Persistence does not mean ignoring thoughts or suppressing fear. It means refusing to let them define your identity. Doubt may pass through the mind, but it does not have to become a belief. You acknowledge it without agreeing with it. You gently return to the assumption of fulfillment. Over time, this return becomes automatic. The power of persistence lies in familiarity. What you consistently return to begins to feel normal. What feels normal becomes believable. What is believable becomes real. This is how a new assumption replaces an old one, not in a single dramatic moment, but through repeated acceptance. Persistence also reshapes inner dialogue. The conversations you have with yourself begin to change tone. You stop explaining why something hasn't happened and start assuming that it already has. Your language softens, your expectations shift. Even silence begins to carry confidence. This inner shift sends a clear signal to consciousness, free from contradiction. The outer world responds to the dominant assumption, not the occasional thought. A fleeting doubt cannot undo a deeply rooted state. But inconsistency can slow the process. Persistence removes inconsistency. It stabilizes the signal. When consciousness receives the same assumption repeatedly, it accepts it as fact. This is why effort often feels exhausting while persistence feels steady. Effort tries to make something happen. Persistence allows something to unfold. One strains against resistance, the other dissolves it. When you persist in assumption, you are not fighting reality. You are instructing it. Persistence reaches a tipping point. The assumption feels so natural that questioning it seems unnecessary. At that moment, the win is already sealed internally. The outer world is simply completing the process. When results appear, they feel earned, but not through struggle. They feel inevitable. Because they were not created in the moment of appearance, they were secured through persistence long before. To persist is to remain faithful to the end without needing reassurance. And faithfulness sustained over time is what seals the win. Most people live toward their desires, measuring progress, counting distance, and watching the clock. This approach keeps fulfillment permanently in the future. To live from the end is to reverse this movement entirely. It is to begin where you intend to arrive and let life reorganize itself around that starting point. When you live from the end, desire stops being a destination and becomes an identity. Living towards something carries effort, tension, and anticipation. There is always a sense of not yet. Living from the end carries ease. The question is no longer how to get there, but how life will express what is already assumed. This inner shift changes everything because consciousness does not move toward fulfillment. It expresses what it already is. To live from the end means you think, feel, and respond as the person who has already received, not pretending, not acting, but inwardly accepting it as true. Your reactions soften because there is nothing to chase. Your expectations change because the outcome is no longer in doubt. Even challenges are interpreted differently, not as obstacles, but as part of the unfolding. This does not require visualizing constantly or controlling every thought. It requires alignment, alignment between what you desire and how you see yourself. When the inner identity matches the fulfilled state, the outer world adjusts naturally. You are no longer reaching, you are allowing. Many struggle with this concept because they try to live from the end while still checking the middle. They imagine fulfillment, then immediately look for evidence. That movement collapses the state. Living from the end means you stop consulting appearances for confirmation. You trust the inner decision more than the external snapshot. When you live from the end, your inner conversations change. You no longer ask if it will happen. You assume it has. Your mind becomes quieter. Your actions become more intuitive. You stop forcing outcomes and start responding to inspiration. This responsiveness is not random. It is guided by the state you occupy. Time also changes its meaning. When the end is assumed, waiting dissolves. You may still experience sequence, but you are no longer emotionally invested in speed. You understand that what is already yours cannot be delayed, only revealed. Living from the end does not mean withdrawing from life or ignoring responsibilities. It means engaging with life from a place of certainty rather than hope. You show up fully, but without desperation. You make decisions from confidence, not lack. This shift alone alters the trajectory of events. The line between inner and outer disappears. The world begins to mirror your assumption in ways that feel natural and unsurprising. Conversations align, opportunities appear, circumstances adjust, and when the result manifests, it feels familiar because you have been living there inwardly all along. To live from the end is to trust consciousness as the cause and let experience be the effect. It is the quiet mastery of beginning where others are still trying to arrive. The truth woven through this entire message is simple yet powerful. Nothing begins outside of you. Every victory, every shift, every breakthrough is decided id first within consciousness. The moment you claim the end as real, feel it as natural, and remain loyal to it, the outcome is no longer uncertain. It is inevitable. The outer world does not create your success, it reveals it. By holding the inner victory steady, trusting the process, and living from fulfillment rather than anticipation, you allow life to catch up with what is already done. Stay faithful to the state you have chosen. Move with quiet certainty and let reality align in its own perfect way. The win is done. It is entering your reality now. Thanks for listening.